time. I had all the time in the world, and then all of a sudden it gets closer to the time, and it becomes a mad frenzy, panic.
I know. So, hello everybody. Welcome to the Glory Glory podcast. I'm your host, as always, Ken Quinn, and join me today is a new guest. It's Pat Lawless from the Man Utd Agenda. How's it going, Pat?
Not bad calling yourself. Glad to be on.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on. I'm glad that we're back to watching United play at Old Trafford after 6 weeks of no United football, just been nothing but World Cup football. But as enjoyable as some of the World Cup was, I'm glad that it's over now. We're back to normality again, and United back to continuing on their winning ways. Um, Carried on we left off 6 weeks ago against Fulham. I wouldn't say it was a spectacular performance, but it was a professional job by the United team, and some really standout individual displays last night. And one in particular was a surprise, the right back. So what did you make of the game last night, then, Pat?
Oh man, it was a bit of a slug for me, and the World Cup killed me because I felt like we were starting to finally hit a bit of momentum under Eric Ten Hag, and the football was starting to become good. And then all of a sudden it just stopped, and we hit the World Cup, and I was like, no, just give us another month, one more month. Everybody's starting to hit a bit of form. Rashford's starting to hit a bit of form. Bruno's hitting a bit of form. Shaw was playing well. Even Maguire was starting to get a few performances under his belt. He wasn't perfect by any stretch of imagination, but he was doing better. Um, I really enjoyed last night's game of football. Not the fact that we were playing Burnley. It was the fact that it was a job done. It wasn't strenuous. It was not like the February performance where we had the typical 11 men in the box. The goalkeeper has a worldie, 1,000 saves made, and we just can't score. And their defense turns into Vidic and Ferdinand. But it didn't have that feeling last night. I never had that. I never had that nervousness about it. It always felt that we were in control, even when the likes of Ashley Barnes was relentless, and he kept going and he kept going and he kept going. So it was good performance, professionally done. Regardless of it being Burnley, it speaks volumes for the manager and how he's turned us around at the moment.
Okay, before we continue, please get your comments in, subscribe to the podcast, and drop us a wee like on the video. I was surprised by how I don't not easy, but how comfortable it was last night. Wouldn't have been surprised given that we had like half a team playing. Some of the players were only just back in training after the World Cup. Burnley had their strongest 11 out. They're top of the championship. I wouldn't have been surprised if this went all the way to penalties, but it was never in any danger of that happening. So I was really pleased to see United, win so comfortably. This is a return to United of old, really. Just uh, putting away championship teams in a cup match and no fuss. So let's talk about the first goal first of all. What a ball from Bruno out to Wan-Bissaka, and then the ball from Wan-Bissaka on the volley into Ericsson. Where did he pull that from? I mean, and then Ericsson getting into the 6 yard box and putting it in close range. That's what you want to see your attacking midfielders do. It was
Yeah.
like Paul Scholes in the old days. So, what did you make of that goal then?
First of all, the ball by Bruno, like we were watching the replay on Sky Sports there last night, and you could see Wan-Bissaka had his hand up. He had his hand up. He had his hand up, and that's good. That's confidence. He's looking for the ball. He wants the ball. He's not shying away and sitting at the back of the post hoping the ball doesn't come to him. He has his hand up. Peach of a ball over the top by Bruno Fernandes. Couldn't be happier with it. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, not only the sliding tackle master, he even sliding tackles the ball by crossing it into the box. Is what it looked like. And it was a great ball. It wasn't just an average ball. I hate them little tippy tappy float the ball into the box. It came in with a bit of power, a bit of venom. Christian Eriksen, Mr. Cool, never phased, just puts it straight into the back of the net, and we were off. And it was a great start. Yeah, great start. I was my biggest concern was going in before half time and not scoring.
Yeah, and Wan-Bissaka had other moments in the game where he was going past players. Like we've rarely seen this in his 3.5 years at Old Trafford. He's come in for a lot of criticism for his apparent lack of attacking ability, which we expect from modern fullbacks. But it's getting to the point where Ten Hag can probably get a tune out of absolutely anyone. You wouldn't be surprised now if Phil Jones come into the team next week and played a blinder.
but it's getting like that. for all the United fans were sitting there back with their arms crossed. We were all saying he's gone, get rid of him, get rid of him. He's turning players. Like he's taking them off from little lumps of coal and turning them into diamonds. Now I'm not saying Wan-Bissaka is back. I'm not saying he's a superstar in the making. Is he going to be happy as a number 2 at Manchester United? Because the Lowe's doing a very good job of keeping him out of the team. So that's a big question. I think that Erik ten Hag's going to ask Wan-Bissaka, are you going to be happy with number 2 until you prove yourself, till you get into the team? He definitely put himself in the shop window if he's not staying at Manchester United after that performance. So there was once or twice in the game, I was watching it last night, and it wasn't only Wan-Bissaka getting forward. This was all obviously planned. You could see Bruno dropping a little bit deeper and hanging back while Wan-Bissaka was getting forward. So that's obviously the manager's instructions for instilling a bit of confidence into the man, saying, make sure you get up that pitch. Let's get up that pitch and make sure you're doing what you're doing. And he wasn't a world beater last night, but he's 100 times better than the Wan-Bissaka we've had to watch for the last couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, if he can play like that whenever he comes into the side, then there might be no need to sign him back up for Dallo. I actually thought that, and most fans thought the same, that the manager had just given up on Wan-Bissaka and was totally surplus to requirements. But he really talked him up after the game last night. So maybe he could be the number 2 going forward, or maybe he just could be. This could be him just putting himself in the shop window, like you say, and he could be sold in January. So wait and see how that goes. But it's certainly looking more positive for Wan-Bissaka at the moment. So the second goal, I think McTominay won the ball back in his own half, and then Rashford done the rest from there. Just a sensational individual goal, a goal you might associate with Mbappe. I mean, you might say. So I think Rashford's had a really good season so far. The only criticism of Rashford so far this season has been the missed chances that he's had in certain games, but apart from that, I think he's returned to his best this season, hasn't
he? Yeah. 9 goals in 20 games. That speaks volumes for him at the moment. The difference of the Marcus Rashford he is at the moment, he looks focused. He looks confident. He played out on the right last night. I think it was Anthony came on and then he was put out on the left. Martial went off and then he was played up the middle. So he's getting on with what he's being asked to do. No sulking out of him. No, like last year and at the start of the year, Marcus Rashford couldn't play out on that right-hand side of the pitch for love and money. And as you just stated, Kyle, he was like Mbappe dribbling the ball there last night. It wasn't a head down running into the corner kind of run. He looked like he was saying to himself, I'm going to dribble this 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm gone. And then when he got that goal, geez, I couldn't hold in the excitement of the roar I let off when that goal went in. Not because we're playing Burnley, not because we're winning 2-0. It's just so good to watch. You know, he looks revitalized as a player. And he was at the World Cup at Gareth Southgate. He didn't get started in all the games, but every time he came on, he done the business. That to me is a player who knows what he wants to come in and do it for the team. And long it may continue for Marcus Rashford, because if he keeps this up under Erik ten Hag, it's going to make me a very, very happy little Irishman. That's all I can say.
Yeah, he actually scored from the right-hand side for England against Iran as well. So a lot of fans have said he doesn't excel on the right-hand side, and I was one of those. But it seems as if he can produce magic when he's playing out on the right, but I think he does prefer to play on the left. And we've seen the confidence he got from scoring that individual goal last night. He had when he went out onto the left, I think he nutmegged someone, then he totally roasted another defender, and he should have took the shot on right then with the left foot, but he tried to take it on a bit further, and I think the shot was blocked or went out for a corner. But it demonstrated the confidence that he picked up from that goal, and he could easily have had another individual goal in the same game. So yeah, this Rashford is a huge asset to Man United, and if he keeps playing like this, then he's going to get above 20 goals this season, I reckon. Do you think he could get to 20, 25 by the end of May?
Well, I think that it not only depends on him keeping his form up, it all depends on Bruno keeping his magic form, Martial staying fit, Anthony coming into form. Hopefully now we get the likes of Garnacho. He has a chance to cement a bit of a position in the team at the moment, and you never know, we may even get Sancho back. But we'll have to play as a team and win as a collective for him to get that kind of goals. It'd be my opinion.
Okay, something else I want to talk about was Casemiro deputising at centre back, which raised a few eyebrows. But he looked like he'd been playing there all his career. Like I think Ten Hag said beforehand that he Casemiro had played centre back more than McTominay, so that's why I went for Casemiro. But again, another decision that Ten Hag got right. I mean, he was just like you might say Beckenbauer back there. The wee elegant headers and all to the left and the right, and playing it out, and then just so many tackles that he made as well. He just looks comfortable. He looked just as comfortable at centre back as he does in midfield. What a signing he has been, and it's still hard to believe that Real Madrid's Casemiro, who's won 5 European Cups, came to play for United in the Europa League. But yeah, I'm absolutely delighted about that, and what a signing he's been.
Isn't it great that he's come to us and he's bringing this wealth of experience, and he's not a crock, you know. He's not
Yeah,
injured. He's not injured every second week. Like that was my biggest fear when I seen him come to us. But he's just such a professional. Like I reckon you could stick the gloves on him, he could play and goal. Do you know that? And I tell you one thing, he probably would have done better than Dúbravka last night because he looked shaky a couple of times there last night, and a couple of the saves as well. But no, he was excellent. You could see he was running the back line there last night. It's great to be able to have a ball playing centre back, even though he's not a centre back, who can play the ball forward as get stuck in. And he just looked comfortable. Everything was comfortable, everything was organised. Victor Lindelof played well beside him as well. Wan-Bissaka, because everything was going so well at the back, he got to get a little bit further up the pitch. So this is all testament to Casemiro playing at centre half. I was actually a little bit concerned because I thought it was actually going to be McTominay when they seen the team sheet that was going to be McTominay. And McTominay hasn't had the best record there recently playing for Scotland at centre back. So it worked out a lot better with Casemiro playing there. So all around good performance by Casemiro.
yeah, he's been unbelievable, and he had a really good World Cup as well. He scored that fantastic goal against Switzerland, and then in the shootout where they lost against Croatia, he absolutely buried his penalty. He doesn't seem to do anything wrong at the moment, except for one pass last night late in the game where he gave it away when he was into his own area, and he gave us all kittens. But he's allowed to make a mistake because he's been an unbelievable signing
That's it.
and a game changer, really.
Yeah.
So the only downside to signing him and Ericsson is their age. If only we'd have signed these players 5 years ago, our Premier League drought might have ended already.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Every time these players sign for the club, it's like Henrik Larsson all over again. I'm just like, why couldn't you got these fellas 10 years ago in their prime, you know? But they're just so calm and so consistent, and the difference they make to a team straight away, it's unbelievable. Especially Ericsson.
Yeah, and you mentioned there that Casemiro isn't a crock. Yeah, I just brought to my mind straight away Bastian Schweinsteiger. We're all excited about that signing, and he couldn't string 2 games together because of his fitness issues.
Yeah,
But that's definitely not the case with Casemiro so far. Anyway, touch wood.
no,
And Ericsson, he could be one of at Spurs he was like a number 10, but now United we've seen him being used in mostly in a deeper role, and it looks like it absolutely suits him. He could be like a Scholes or a Pirlo. He could play or Modric. He could play until he's 37 as long as he's got 2 younger midfielders around him to do the work for him. But he could just sit and pick a pass all day. So I wouldn't be surprised if he plays to the age that Modric has played to.
no, and he's not phased at all playing the double pivot beside Scott McTominay there sitting in front of the back four. Not phased whatsoever. Now, in the bigger games against the likes of the Liverpool and the Man Cities, you can see he struggles quite a bit because them teams are relentless with fitness, fast players. But in a game against Burnley there last night, he's just waiting for McTominay to win the ball back. He gets it to him, gates to Casemiro. Sorry, not Casemiro, to Ericsson. And what I love about the relationship that's going on there at the moment, whether it's Casemiro or it's Ericsson that's picking up that ball at the back four, you always see Martial dropping deep to pick it up. He's great at it. He picks it up, and it's Ericsson, Bruno, Martial, and then Martial's laying it off to Garnacho or Rashford, and it starts to run the play again. And it's great to watch. And that's the difference when you have a silky footballer like Ericsson in the midfield, treading the ball through for you. So easy.
Yeah, absolutely magnificent football. And I always rated him. Also, he was a good player, but he's actually even better than I thought he was. It's and Casemiro as well. I knew he was one of the top CDMs in the world when he was at Real Madrid, but he's actually a better footballer than I thought he was. I think Casemiro could easily play in a more advanced role in midfield and wouldn't look out of place, and centre back as well, obviously. Yeah, these guys are very versatile, aren't they? But like you say, um, Ericsson, when he was playing in the double pivot at the Etihad, he was caught out. I think Ten Hag got it wrong that day, and hopefully when we play City again in January, he would have learned from that. And I would certainly consider maybe playing McTominay alongside Casemiro when we're playing Man City. That might be the wise thing to do. Would you go along with that?
Yeah. Well, see, a lot of people don't appreciate Scott McTominay for the amount of work that he does off the ball. He's such a hard grafter, and you need somebody who's going to do that leg work when you have people in the midfield like that. Like, you're not going to get Casemiro or Ericsson running around that pitch until that face is nearly pink like Scott McTominay, because that's the kind of player he is. He's the engine for it. He's up and down the pitch. He's getting stuck into challenges. He's not afraid to upset a player either, and I like that about McTominay. He has leadership qualities in him. So no, I think you're right. You will. You might even see him playing Ericsson a little bit further up the field the next time in the likes of the City game, and with McTominay playing there.
Yeah, I think the manager really likes McTominay. At times he can frustrate you, and you're like, "Oh, that's a real lack of quality." And there were moments like that last night. But despite that, he won the ball back for Rashford's goal. I think he set up a chance for Martial. Remember, Martial was he received the ball to feet just inside the area, and then he kind of turned to the defender, and then he had left-footed shot that was saved by the goalkeeper. He was unlucky there, but McTominay created that chance. So yeah, he
Like,
does tend to have a mixed bag in games. McTominay, sometimes he can frustrate, and then other times he can create chances, and he wins the ball back, and he can never fault his tenacity, as you say. So I think he is a useful squad player. But if we were playing in the FA Cup final or a Champions League final, I don't think McTominay would be in the team. Would he? What do you think?
see, he doesn't get the compliments sometimes he deserves. Like, Burnley had two players last night that stick in my mind. One is Johan and Gunmundsson and Ashley Barnes. Two handfuls of players, and all night they were getting stuck into us, and you have to be relentless to keep up with these guys, because all they wanted was one chance. And McTominay, fairness to him, he stuck. He stuck. See, McTominay, the difference between McTominay and they have the likes of Fred, and we have Solo in the chat there. He's not going to like me saying this, right? But he's under instruction, Scott McTominay is, and he's being asked to do what Eric Ten Hag wants him to do, which is stay in the double pivot, stay to your side, keep the mid block solid, don't let them walk through, force them out to the flanks, and he's great at doing it, and he's great at breaking up the play as well. People don't see this during the game, but if he wasn't in there, you'd see us getting torn straight through the middle, and he's very good for it. So I'd like to see. I think he deserves a little bit more credit than he deserves. Scott McTominay. He's not a world beater. We could have a better player than him in there, but he does a good job for what we have at Manchester United.
Yeah, at United, there's always a player that, even going back to the Fergie days, there's always a player that the manager really appreciates that the fans don't value as much as a manager. You could say, for example, Darren Fletcher or Ji-sung Park or players like that. There's always one of those players in the squad that he will get into the starting 11 against Liverpool, City, Arsenal. Not many of the fans want him to start, but he always will, because he has the trust of the manager. And I think McTominay is one of those players. So I want to talk about the goalkeeper. I think he had a bit of a nightmare last night, to be honest. He was nearly embarrassed on a few occasions. There was I think, was it a corner or a free kick that came in where he totally spilt it, and it needed a clearance off the line. I think Wan-Bissaka and Casemiro both went for the clearance off the line, nearly got in each other's way. The goalkeeper really did not fill me full of confidence last night. And one man who will be even more upset at watching that will be Tom Heaton, who probably expected to be United's number 2 when Dean Henderson left. Ten Hag brought Dúbravka in on loan instead, because he obviously doesn't seem to fancy Heaton that much. But I'm starting to wonder why we brought this guy in on loan, because in both games that he's played, I've not been convinced. What do you think?
Well, after that performance last night, I think Eric Ten Hag will have been biting his nail saying, "Oh Jesus, this is one of my signings." And he's coming out to punch the ball and he's missing it and it's falling down in front of him. It just didn't look like his head was in the game last night, did it? He looked shaky. And when us as fans are watching the game and we're sitting there looking at it and we're starting to get nervous at the balls coming in over the top and he's coming out when he's flapping at it, you can only imagine how he's feeling if we're feeling nervous. So, look, we can sit here and talk about all the things he done wrong last night. It could be just a bad game. Hopefully, it's just a bad game, and he gets it out of his system. But there's a difference between stages at Newcastle and at Manchester United, and the bigger stage could come down to affecting the goalkeeper. Like, there's a lot of great boxers in this world, but some of them never make it out of the sparring ring because when it comes to the big stage, they just can't handle it. And maybe that could have been part of the problem for the Brackford last night. It's just, it was a big stage for him, and maybe it got to him a little bit. I'm not sure, or he could have just had a bad game.
Yeah, I suppose you have to make an allowance for that he might have been nervous last night. But it's not his first game. He played in the last round as well. And I know it's big pressure. Not only playing for United Old Trafford, but debuting for De Gea, who's like a legendary goalkeeper for United. And it's a totally different kettle of fish to playing for Newcastle, who have been relegation fodder for a long time until this year, for obvious reasons. But yeah, he certainly doesn't fill me with the confidence that Romero did, for example. I never, when Romero played all those Europa League and Cup games, I was never scared the way I was last night. Wasn't there a time where he was Casemiro or someone ball back to him, he took his eye off it and it nearly rolled into the net and he had to clear it off the line? I mean, what are you doing?
I think his head had gone at that stage. That was one that was one of them where the ball is coming in and he has his hands up in the air and he's frozen and it just goes by him. He's thinking more. He's thinking more instead of just reacting.
Yeah. He was probably still thinking about the mistake he had made earlier in the game.
Yeah. His head had gone.
So it'd be interesting to see now who plays in the next round. Will he bring De Gea in, or will he play Tom Heaton, or will he stick with Dúbravka? It'd be very loyal of the manager if he does stick with him.
The last one, Malacia. Do you remember Malacia had a stinker, and Ten Hag didn't even take a second thought on it. He was just out the next game, and he didn't bring him back in for another couple of games then. So we kind of, right, okay, you've had to have the bad one. I'm going to bring you back in. I'm going to nurture you, build you back up, and then put you back into the system again, So we might do that with Dúbravka. So we might see Heaton in the next game.
Yeah, and I would like to see, try not to be too sentimental, but I would like to see Heaton getting a chance. After coming back to the club, he hasn't really got much of a chance so far. And he probably thought he would be number 2 when Henderson departed. And I think when he's played in pre-season games and stuff, Heaton, he's done all right. So after that performance by Dúbravka, it's probably good to give Heaton a go now whenever the opportunity arises, maybe in the next round, depending on who we're playing. Obviously, if we get the winner of City and Liverpool, we're probably going to have to play De Gea in the next round.
Yeah.
So we've had a few sparkling displays from Garnacho this season. Not so last night. But I'm not going to be too harsh on him because we can't. I know he's a brilliant player, but we can't expect him to produce hat-tricks in every game at his age. He's going to have bad games here and there at least. So yeah, I'm not too annoyed about that. The next game he starts, he'd probably play a blinder. So you can't expect consistency from a youngster. And Anthony, I think, came on for him after 59 minutes. Anthony nearly had a goal. Anthony he reminds me of Robin, the way he cuts in on his left foot and always tries to just either shoot into the far or near corner, and he would get plenty of goals that way. If Anthony can turn into prime Iron Robin, he'll have a hell of a player on our hands. But Garnacho, it been just an absolute sensation in the few weeks before the World Cup, and hopefully he can rediscover that form over Christmas. So I'm not too disappointed with his performance last night. What did you make of it?
No, I think he done. I think he done very well. Like Burnley, like company has Burnley set up very well. You know, they were a very well organized team, and it could have been just a case that he wasn't getting them pockets of space that he'd normally look out for, and they are a lot more of a physical team. They were getting stuck into us last night, and he could have got a challenge early, and it could have affected him, and he just wasn't as motivated for the game. I thought he done all right for what he done. He just didn't set the world alight. It's very hard. It's very hard to get a bit of limelight in the game like that when you have the likes of Bruno spraying balls around the place, Aaron Wan-Bissaka playing well, Marcus Rashford playing well. He wasn't on his game last night, but he did do well. For what he done well. And as you say, he's a kid. He's going to have his ups and downs. He's going to have his good games. He's going to have his bad games. So I think he done very well for what he did last night.
Yeah, it just come back to me there. He had a chance, I think, in the first half where he was 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper, and a poor touch kind of let him down. I think a poor touch let him down later in the game as well. He kind of gave me the impression last night that he was trying too hard. He's trying too hard to impress the manager. He should just kind of relax and just play his normal game and don't worry about having to impress. Just do your thing, and the goals and assists will come. So it'd be interesting to see if the manager will stick with him against Forest, and I hope that he does. So I'll just get on to the player ratings now. I'll ask you for your opinion on these. So Dúbravka, what would you give him out of 10?
Oh man, well he kept the clean sheet, so we have to give him a 4.
Okay, for generous 4.
Generous 4, yeah.
Wan-Bissaka.
Promising. I give him a 7.
Yeah, I agree with that. Lindelof.
Lindelof, he done what he had to do, so I give him a 6.
Casemiro.
I love the man, so I give him an 8.
Absolutely. Malacia
was doing well. He was getting stuck in. You can see the fella never stops smiling, but yet he gets stuck into every challenge like he has a problem with them. So he done his job, so I'll give him a 6.
Scott McTominay.
Scott done well on the night. He'd 1 or 2 hairy moments. So I'm not going to sit here and go on like I'm on Team Scott McTominay. So I'll give Scott a 6.
Christian Eriksen.
One of my favorite players. He gets an 8, especially for scoring as well.
Yeah, hopefully Eriksen can get 10 goals by the end of the season. So Marcus Rashford.
Man of the match. He gets a 10 from me, especially for that dribble.
Yeah. It was. I compared him to Mbappe earlier. Maybe we could even compare that to R9. You would have seen him score goals like that. Hopefully Rashford can do that on a more regular basis. So Bruno Fernandes.
Bruno gets an A from me. I thought Bruno was excellent last night, and just like Marcus Rashford, I hope he continues this form from the World Cup and keeps it going.
Yeah, it's looking promising so far. Garnacho,
he didn't have a lot to do, and when he done it right, he done okay for a young lad in a tough game. It's not an easy game, that wasn't yesterday. So people think we're playing Burnley, it's going to be an easy game, but I think he done well. So I'm going to give him a 6.
And Anthony Martial.
A 7. I want to see him getting more game time. I want to see him getting goal, and I'm saying a prayer every day that he stays fit and doesn't get injured, because he can be such a good asset for us if he stays fit.
Yeah, and I think Ten Hag really likes him. He was fouled one stage in the second half, and he went down clutching his leg, and we're thinking, oh, here we go. He's
he got up in his white shorts, green, because he must have been sliding along the grass, and he's holding his leg, and I'm like, oh no, man, here we go again. He's gone. But he wasn't.
I think he was maybe acting a wee bit.
Yeah.
Solo says Fred gets 10 out of 10. Yeah, he made a wee cameo appearance at the end of the game. So Ten Hag, what would you give him out of 10 for last night?
Oh man, Ten Hag, if I could give him man of the match, I would. He's just galvanized their club so much. He's in the 6 months or so that he's there, he's changed the mentality. Like what you said about Garnacho, he's maybe trying a little bit too hard, but he knows that if Anthony hits a bit of form and takes that right hand side, Rashford takes the left hand side, and he's out. So there's competition now, and you have to work hard. You can see that he's a no-nonsense manager. You've seen the Jadon Sancho comments afterwards. She asked him, when is he going to be back? Do you have any update for us? No. Do you have anything else? No. Awkward silence. I don't have to give you any information if I don't have to. I'm in charge here, and that's it. So it's great. He doesn't feel he's so in control, and I hope it's like that in the background as well. So it's all about the support the man gets, and if he gets the support, it's very promising for our club at the moment.
Yeah, especially if the owners go and they're replaced with responsible owners, it gives Ten Hag even more of a chance. And I think Ten Hag by far is the best managerial appointment since Fergie left. That's in my opinion, and a lot of fans feel the same. Even though we're only 6 months in and we lost 6 weeks to the World Cup, but it's not always not just about results. It's the performances of the team are putting in. We would probably have even more wins if it wasn't for the lack of goals. That we're missing so many chances this season. Like for example, the Chelsea game where we played them off the pitch and drew one each when we should have won easily. And the Newcastle game where we should have drew 0-0 and should have won that game. Obviously we do need a goal scorer to come into to play a nice number 9 to complement the team, and then we really will be going places. Obviously we might. I think Ten Hag has said he wants to sign a younger midfielder as well, someone like Bellingham if that's possible, and then backup right back, which might not be needed anymore going on last night's evidence. But Ten Hag has been so impressive. Not just the results, but the performances and how he's handled difficult situations has really impressed me as well. Not least the Cristiano Ronaldo. Not really going to talk about him anymore. It's done and dusted now.
We're all wore out with that saga.
Yeah, it was getting tedious, and thankfully we no longer even have to mention it. Because he was, even when our best performance of the season arguably was against Tottenham, even though we only won 2-0 and should have won by 5 or 6, the story was Ronaldo after the game. So thankfully that's not going to happen anymore. So yeah, like I said, Ten Hag handled that superbly. He's handling the Sancho situation superbly, and yeah, I have belief that he's going to win trophies at United, and I will have even more belief that that's going to happen if there's a change of ownership. As long as the owners are better than the Glazers and not worse. It's the first appointment that this board has actually got right. Because if we look back on the previous managers, David Moyes was supposedly a Fergie choice, the wrong one. Seems if he was picked because he was Scottish and he'd done well with a low budget at Everton. Wrong man. Van Gaal and Mourinho are similar in the fact that Van Gaal Mourinho to a lesser extent, but their day had come and gone. By the time they came to Old Trafford, they weren't at their peak anymore in terms of the managerial careers. Like for example, Mourinho is now managing the team that's 5th in Serie A. He was sacked at Tottenham after leaving United. Van Gaal went into retirement, and the only job he's done since is with the national team for a short period. And Solskjaer was never qualified to be United manager. He'd only ever managed Cardiff, where he was sacked, and Molde in Norway. And yeah, Ten Hag is one of those managers has done well in European competitions, and he's won his domestic league over and over again. And someone that's on the way up in terms of his career, like we tend to have, like with the likes of Mourinho and Van Gaal, we got managers who were on the way down, whereas Ten Hag was on the way up. He's very much a modern coach who plays a modern style of football. So we 100% got that right, in my opinion.
Yeah, like he's the right man at the right time. Like our club is in such a bad transition over the past 10 years, where the likes of Ed Woodward and Matt Judge were just playing football manager with buying the best players that were out there for the highest price and throwing them at managers and hoping for the best, and it wasn't working. They kept just buying these players. Like I remember for 6 years, I kept saying we needed a right back and we need a right winger and a centre midfielder, and we were going out and getting the likes of Sanchez, and then we were going out and we were we're getting Falcao, Di Maria, and we still weren't fixing the root cause of the team. We hadn't got midfield. We had weaker areas, and it kept snowballing. And all we kept doing was getting these high profile, big money signings. And now all of a sudden, Eric Ten Hag's came in. He's kind of slowed everything down. You can see he's not jumping the gun. He's not going, I need 10 players. I can understand he's made a couple of signings, but he's made a couple of signings because he needed the players. He's not getting rid of as many players as he's bringing in at the moment. He's trying to work with what he's got. Look what he's done with Luke Shaw. Look what he's done with Rashford. Look what he's done with Maguire. Look what he's done with Bruno to a certain extent. And now the proof is in the pudding with what he's doing with Aaron Wan-Bissaka. He seems to be turning him around. So he's not only changing the attitude of the club, he's bringing the players together and making them play for the club instead of being individual performances. And then we're going out after 90 minutes, and it's a 1-1 draw, and they're all throwing their arms up in the air because they're not playing for each other. They're all just trying to get a goal to see who can make the headlines the following day. So I'd like to see Eric get what he wants. This is the biggest thing. Was what he needs now is backing, and if he gets the backing, we're on to a winner.
Yeah, and it's testament to Ten Hag. It's easy to forget how bad it was back in April, May. You know, we were getting thumped in games against Liverpool, Brighton, and then obviously in last autumn we were losing to teams like Watford. We were getting thumped by Liverpool and City, cricket scores. But yeah, under Solskjaer, at the end of Solskjaer's tenure on the Ranić period, the players weren't even interested anymore. They weren't even trying. There was players coming on as substitutes in the Manchester derby and just walking around. You had Ranić, the temporary manager, basically calling out players in public for their attitude. We're thinking this, and then when the season started, it seemed like more of the same against Brentford and Brighton. We're thinking some fans, and probably even including myself, were thinking this is so bad we could end up in a relegation fight this season. But Ten Hag has turned it around so quickly, and now we're talking about top four and winning trophies again in just a very short period of time. I was all for advocating to give him time, give him 3 or 4 years turn around, but he's done more than I expected in his first 6 months on the job. So long may it continue. Now we need to. I want to see us get 9 out of 9 points in the next 3 league games. I think we've got Forest at home, then Wolves away, who are not doing that well this season, and then Bournemouth at home. So I would like to get 9 out of 9 there if possible. That's really difficult during the Christmas period to get maximum points, but that's a. I know there's no easy games in the Premier League, but if you could handpick, festive fixtures, that would be more or less the 3 that you would go for. So let's go and score a few goals against Forest. And it's a pity that Dean Henderson can't play, because I wouldn't mind putting 5 or 6 past him after his TalkSport interview in the summer. But
and that goes to show what Eric Ten Hag's doing very well. He's got rid of all the types of players without publicising it and making the show of them. He's got rid of the players. Now all of a sudden, I'm not saying the stories are fully gone out of Manchester United, but they don't seem to be circulating as much. And then the proof was in the pudding with Dean Henderson leaving. He wasn't even gone a wet weekend, and he's on TalkSport shooting his mouth off, and you're like, oh my God, were you really that bad when you were at our club if you're doing it now as soon as you left,
Yeah, he was on that occasion he was saying publicly probably what he was saying privately to the media while he was at the club. I know we've no actual proof of who was leaking stories, but it wouldn't shock me one bit if he was one of them. Possibly Lingard might have been one of them too. Didn't Paul Scholes seem to give that away last season? Wasn't it? Didn't Richard Arnold, when he met the fans in that pub, didn't he say that the dressing room leakers had left the club? He was confident that happened, so that was an interesting comment. But yeah, you would fully expect United, who are playing this well, to go and beat Forest, who are bottom of the league, I think, or at least somewhere in that vicinity, to beat them by 3 or 4 at Old Trafford on the 27th. And that's disappointing. You know what I love most about the Premier League calendar is the full fixture list on the 26th of December, the day after Christmas. And now our game's been delayed because of Amazon Prime to 8 o'clock on the 27th. So we have to wait a lot longer than most teams to see us play our first Premier League game since the World Cup. So really irritates me.
But isn't it great? We've gone from the drought of the World Cup to all of a sudden we have this amount of games to look forward to, which is going to be great.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so on 27th, the 31st, and then again on the 3rd, and then we're into the FA Cup, and then we're into Arsenal and City. And then obviously we've got a two-legged tie with Barcelona coming up in February as well. So lots to look forward to. And you know, I believe that United can get results in these games now. Last season we were just waiting to get thumped if we are playing really good sides, or even sides in the bottom half of the table where we were conceding 4 goals against them. But I have belief now in this team, and the manager, and long may it continue. So I think the League Cup probably represents, not only is it the earliest opportunity to end our trophy drought, which has gone on since 2017, also represents the best chance now because so many of the so-called big teams went out in the last round. Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, I think, and then Liverpool City are playing each other tonight. So one of them will leave the competition. I know Leicester are still in it, and as are Newcastle, but it's a real opportunity now for us to win a trophy by the end of February if we can avoid the winner of tonight's game in the next round.
Can you just imagine if we do win it? Eric Ten Hag, all the lads are celebrating on the pitch and they get their medals, and then they all come back into the dressing room. I can just imagine them. Okay, takes the cup off them. Now, lads, you got your cup. That's not good enough. That's all that good as far as a door stopper. Put that down there. Now, back to the training ground. We're going to win the league next year, lads. That's all he'll want. I'd say that man, if he won the treble, he'd still go back to his office and work on what he's going to do for the next 5 games. This fella is the right man at our club to bring us forward, and I can't wait for it. I'm really looking forward to it.
And who does that remind you of?
Yeah, I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. You hear a lot of people are saying, "Oh, he's like Fergie," and I'm like, but it's hard. It's hard not to say he's like him because his attributes, how he's handling, like I'm just waiting for him to throw somebody out of a press conference. That's all I'm waiting for. He's gonna ban your man from the Sun out of the next press conference for 6 months. Get out. You're not welcome. That's all I'm waiting for. And we're like, oh my God, he's just like Fergie. He's done it already, how he handled Ronaldo's situation. You can see it now with the way he's talking to the pressers. No messing with them. I'm just waiting for him to choke somebody out of a press conference, and then it's it. That's it. It's Fergie.
You remember the journalist who was stalking him, Gary Cotterill, during the summer, and I think he tried to answer a question in one of the press conferences back in October or something on Ten Hag. I don't know, was Ten Hag made the decision or the press officer made the decision, but they wouldn't answer his question. So it seems if he remembers the journalists who are not on his side already. So yeah, the next. I'm not sure what is that guy banned now from Carrington. I'm not sure, but it seems as if Ten Hag has made it clear that he doesn't like the guy and he won't be answering his questions. Although I think I might have heard that he was willing to meet him and smooth over their differences. But yeah, it was creepy. That guy he went out to Amsterdam to stalk him outside Ajax's training ground. And then he showed up at Crystal Palace. Remember the last game of the season when Ten Hag was there, and he's following around the car park and all. And when one of the Ten Hag security guards kind of blocked him off, he says, "Don't touch me. Who do you think you are? You can't touch me."
That's kind of taking your job to the next level, isn't
it? Yeah, he just thought because he's a journalist, he has the absolute right to follow someone around and ask them questions. And when he was told no, go away, there's a time and a place, he was just shouting his mouth off then and just showing his entitlement. And then he's got taken to Twitter to complain about Ten Hag as well. And then he posed with a photo of himself of LVG, and he's all, "This is how a manager should treat journalists. He's always been very respectful and friendly towards me." Like, piss off, mate.
Yeah. You're acting the maggot now. Get up the yard.
Yeah, so that's about everything. Yeah, we've covered everything that I planned to. Yeah, we've we done a professional job last night, and let's get on to Forest and let's get 3 points and let's score 4 or 5 goals hopefully, and the long may continue. So what's your realistic expectations? Do you think we can get top 4 and win a trophy? If I'd have said this back in September, I think most people would have laughed at me. But now it's not so ridiculous, is it?
My initial prediction for this year was I'd be happy if we finished 7th or 8th and no lower. And now all of a sudden we're knocking on the door for top 4. Now that all depends on our squad and injuries. If we pick up injuries, don't bring anybody in January. That's going to have a massive implication on where we're going to finish. But the way Eric Ten Hag is moulding players, the club is moving forward. We're more professional. We don't look like a laughingstock when we're coming up against smaller teams. We're able to handle them playing the full low block of 11 players sitting behind it and still get goals. Is a big difference. It's a massive improvement. Eric Ten Hag by no means is anyway near, I'd say, happy with where he is so far. I'd say he needs a 4 to 6 months with these players before he can even assess for who he wants to get fully rid of and who he's going to keep. So where do I think we're going to finish? If we get top 4 and an EFL Cup, that's my expectations blown out of the water.
Yeah, me included. I just would have taken, maybe finishing 5th this season. I think that's what I said back in the summer, that I would, if Ten Hag has shown signs of progress and finishes 5th, I would stick with him. The owners tend to sack managers for not finishing the Champions League, but he's exceeded all expectations. He could easily finish in the top 4, and he could even win something as well in his first season, which is not what anyone really expected. So yeah, I can't overstate how positive I'm feeling right now. Now that I've said that, we're going to lose to Forest, but I don't think so. I don't think so. Not really. Even with Jesse Lingard in the side, I think he scored last night. I don't think they'll trouble us in that game. And but we were almost comparing Ten Hag to Ferguson earlier on. Like, we're trying not to do that, because if it doesn't work out, the Liverpool fans will clip us up and they'll be replaying
it. Yeah. Remember you said he's like Fergie, and I just like, I know, but it's not that he's like Fergie for everything he does. It's just we're seeing the mannerisms of a man who's in control, and that's why we're comparing him to Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, they're not exactly the same, but he has certain traits that Fergie had that made him great. So that's why we're making those comparisons. So everyone can please subscribe to the channel, drop us a like on the video, and comment your thoughts down below. And it's been fantastic to have you on the show, Pat, and hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Definitely, man. Anytime.
Okay, happy Christmas, everybody, and we'll see you again after the Forest game. All right, see you later.